SHAKUR Stevenson is a free agent after his next fight, and he also put up a tweet in which there was an S at the end of your surname. Eddie Hearn's hell of a promoter. He loves that hell of a word. Surely you guys pursue that after this. I know he said he wants to go fight by fight, but working with SHAKUR
I think
would be...
we are... You know, I'm one of the few promoters that fight by fight's not necessarily a route that makes sense for everybody sometimes, but I don't feel the need to tie a fighter down for 3 or 5 years. Being honest, but it's time, as he said, you know, to move and see what happens. And if he's out of contract, 100% I'd have a conversation with him. He would be a massive signing for me at MATCHROOM and DAZN.
All right, so SHAKUR has got one more fight against Artem Tullian, and then his contract's up. So what does he do next? Eddie just said SHAKUR is on a lot of money. We're talking between $3 to $4 million for Edwin Dos Santos. Not a high-profile challenger, not a household name. Yes, a world-title defense, but that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Bob is willing to re-sign him and keep him on a similar pay structure. Maybe restructure the minimum cap Bob can pay him. Adjust that to inflation or whatnot. It might not be a bad idea, because let's keep it real. His last fight against Dos Santos got horrible reviews. Nobody was impressed with that performance. Even though he got the W, his stock plummeted. But, you know, after Loma beat Kambosos, I can understand his frustration, because he thinks that Loma gets too much praise. Kambosos wouldn't fight him. Loma wouldn't fight him. So he's struggling to get these fights with other lightweights on the same roster. He probably doesn't think Bob is kicking enough ass to get them fights done. So he's frustrated. He said they're keeping Lomachenko away from him, like they were keeping Manny Pacquiao away from Terence Crawford. And he does have merit in what he's saying. There are receipts on that. At the same time, you can't afford to go out there and lay eggs like the Dos Santos performance. And he might want to sign him, but he hasn't really got anyone off the top of the head to fight SHAKUR in a big fight to justify paying him that 2 to 3 million cap that he gets for the likes of fighting Dos Santos. And apparently Gervonta Davis is signalling that he wants SHAKUR after he beats Frank Martin, if he beats Frank Martin. And that's the type of fight SHAKUR needs. Eddie can't deliver that fight for him. Got to keep it real. So they say 20 million people illegally streamed Alexander Usyk's historic undisputed heavyweight win over Tyson Fury, costing rights holders over £95 million, with 18% of the illegal streamers coming from the UK. Bow your heads in shame, UK. Bow your heads in shame. How did we come up 18%? So that means out of that 20 million, 1.8 million, 1,800,000 of us illegally streamed it. Well, let's keep it real. £25 is a whole load of disposable income for a lot of people. It's a lot of money. Now, anything over the viewing time of 90 seconds is considered an illegal stream. And let's keep it real, yeah? 1.8 in the UK is more than likely 4.2 million in the UK. Because we're not going to assume that only one person per illegal stream was watching it. 45% of the illegal streams took place in Europe, 25% in North America, and 16% in Asia. So what, they can't account for the other 14%? It says here many of the illegal streams are funded by advertisements for gambling or crypto schemes, while some charge a small fee averaging less than £1. The number of people watching the fight illegally is likely to have been far higher than 20 million, based on the assumption that only one person is watching each stream. Yeah, exactly. So that's costing TV rights holders around 95 million in lost revenue. In the UK, Sky Sports, TNT and DAZN, they all bought the rights to broadcast the first undisputed world heavyweight clash for 25 years on their pay-per-view platforms. But millions of boxing fans chose to avoid paying the £25 fee and instead watched the fight illegally. You know, hardcore fans are going to have to dip into their pockets again in the UK on June the 1st for the 5 versus 5, and it's definitely worth the pay-per-view money in my opinion. But as we're getting what we asked for, quality fights, yes, there will be an increase in pay-per-view events. Now, £25 in the UK, when you compare it to $70 or $69.99 is what people would have paid for Usyk versus Fury in North America. It's surprising that they had a lower percentage over there illegally streaming the fight than we had in Europe. Perhaps that tells us they weren't really interested in that fight on Saturday. There weren't no American participants. First time there's never been an American participant in an undisputed heavyweight title fight. They're claiming that some people can't get Sky Sports, TNT, DAZN, ESPN in certain countries, and that also hurt the viewing figures in terms of people who would have purchased it legally. I doubt that very much. I don't think people are streaming illegally because they can't get hold of these networks. They're streaming illegally because that's what they're going to do. They're not going to pay for it whether they can afford it or not. Fire sticks and all the other stuff they're doing. You know, they have piracy issues with soccer, or what we call football over here. But the advertising revenue deals with the football leagues in FIFA all across the globe, helps absorb some of the losses from piracy and illegal streams. Boxing doesn't have that at the moment. DAZN obviously not very happy. They're warning people who want to opt for the illegal stream that it's not a victimless crime and there could be consequences. Well, it's all well and good. I think most of the quote-unquote outlaws are going to hear that and view it as an empty threat. Now, I'm just finding out that the 5 versus 5 Queensberry versus Matchroom is on the same night as the Champions League final. Now, I love boxing, but I want to see the Champions League final. I mean, so that's definitely going to hurt the viewing figures and the pay-per-view number.
I mean, at the top of the show, you said it's boxing. Things like this happen because of the individuals in the sport. Yeah. There's one message. Can't believe what I'm hearing here. Just go around headbutting people is fine, is it?
No, not really. It's thuggish behaviour. John Fury's, is boorish, thuggish, unedifying, unpalatable, uncouth, vulgar behaviour. Absolutely. But what do you expect from John Fury?
Well,
John Fury's been in prison for gouging someone's eyes out. What did you expect him to do? Convert into a Samaritan? Is it a nice look? No. Was it a nice look over the years in boxing about so many things? This ridiculous sentimentalising of society and expecting everyone to behave in their best version of themselves. No, it's not a great look, but so what? So what? Is it that big a deal? We're in a country where people get sent back in boxes because they've been bone-sawed. What are we talking about here? Are we going to get up on this high horse of ours?
How do you go from thuggish, loutish John Fury behaviour to the Saudis getting people sent back in pieces from being bone-sawed? He's talking about an event that happened in 2018 where a Saudi journalist was killed in Istanbul in a Saudi Arabian consulate and sent back in pieces, bone-sawing. So in condemning John Fury, you throw in Saudi Arabia human rights violations as well. Doesn't even make sense.
No, it's not a great look, but so what? So what? Is it that big a deal? We're in a country where people get sent back in boxes because they've been bone-sawed. What are we talking about here? Are we going to get up on this high horse of ours and suggest that it's so appalling that everybody needs to apologise? Aren't the Usyk camp the same people that accused Fury of cutting himself to avoid the fight?
Didn't Tyson Fury accuse Derek Chisora pulling out of their second fight because he didn't want to smoke and do the same thing to David Haye? It's not uncommon for boxers to call bullshit when their opponents pull out. For you to use that as an analogy for John Fury headbutting an entourage member of Usyk who didn't start no beef doesn't even make sense.
The fact of life is, you are not in a position, nor is it going to happen, that he wants to build any bridges with you. It's done.
Couldn't care less.
And that's it. And that's it. But I'm not bringing it up. You're bringing it up.
No, you brought up the situation around his medical condition,
he doesn't have an
and we commented on it.
He doesn't have an obligation to speak to anybody.
No, of course not.
They'll want to.
I don't know if Queensberry or TNT see as an obligation that Frank has to meet by talking with talkSPORT. But what they do in certain situations is play good cop, bad cop. So Jim White, he kind of pacifies Frank when needs be, and Simon Jordan tears into him when he clearly brought up Tyson Fury's behaviour for no reason. He started it.
Because obviously I have mixed emotions about Tyson's behaviour over the last 12 months.
Well, before you ask me any more questions, I want to answer what Simon said there about his behaviour.
And then when they get Frank all riled up, they say, oh, well, you brought it up. No, Simon brought it up. And then Simon said he doesn't care. You did care. That's the first thing you brought up when you started engaging in the conversation with Frank. You brought it up. But that's what they're there for. Controversial back and forth between talkSPORT and Frank Warren views. It took them an absolute age before they spoke anything about the fight. An absolute age. And it was Frank who had to usher the conversation into the fight. they would have gladly left it in the gutter, talking about Tyson Fury's behaviour.
Saturday night happened. And what we're not doing at the moment is talking about the fight, which I hope we will be able
Good.
to in a
We
moment.
should do that.
But
Let's do
back
that.
to the life. And I've got to be honest, and you know, Simon and I, we have lots of discussions and so forth, and we agree on a lot of things, and there's things that I don't agree on, and him vice versa.
Indeed.
You know, Tyson is bipolar. And if you go on the NHS website and you're talking about the things that are said, you look on there and you look at the symptoms, and bipolar, by the way, has been the word for the last few years on manic depressive. That's a fact. And then, which I think is something that's quite important for somebody who has bipolar, because my brother committed suicide, as I mentioned to you before, Simon.
Yep.
And he was borderline schizophrenic, and that's why I take exception to what's going down here and how easy and what these throwaway lines are about thuggish behaviour. It says making decisions or saying things that are out of character and others may see as risky or harmful. So that's what he's got, bipolar. What he hasn't done, what thugs do, thugs hit people.
Thugs hit people. That can be one part of the description. I haven't looked at the dictionary definition. But you could carry out thuggish behaviour without hitting people. Tyson once told a journalist, "There's my brother Shane, he's 6'6", and he's going to smash the reporter in his face." They didn't actually do it, but that's not thuggish. Frank perhaps trying a little too hard to defend Tyson Fury, bipolar or not. He says a lot of shit. And make no mistake about it, this was a passive-aggressive attack by Jim White and Simon Jordan because they lost on Saturday. And they knew Frank would be easy to rile up. I have no issue dissecting Tyson Fury's behaviour. It's outlandish, it's boorish, it is all of whatever was said. But the events in the ring should have took precedence over any discussion about Tyson Fury's behaviour. That was an undisputed heavyweight title fight, the first for 25 years. I mean, the biggest person it's a disrespect to is Alexander Usyk.
It's going to be a good fight because Joe don't go backwards, I don't go backwards. So what I'm thinking is, by the time we get there, by the time we finish the fight, someone is going to have less brain cells left in their brain. So,
Yay!
I don't mind. I don't mind.
Well, I hope that's not the case.
Oh, that is the case. Let's be honest about it. That is the case.
And I hope.
So, 27th of July, Joe Joyce versus Derek Chisora. People complaining about the fight like it's such a terrible matchup. Derek's washed and this, that. It's an excellent fight. O2 Arena. A battle of two London heavyweights. Very popular London heavyweights. They're going to do a good gate, good attendance. People can enjoy themselves. Undercard fighters get paid. It's going to be a good build-up. Derek's got 3 fights left. Get to 50 fights and he's out of there. I'm not listening to the people complaining about the fight. Life's too short. What do you think fighters do? You know, like, the only time fighters fight is when they're fresh and have unbeaten records and haven't took beatings. No, fighters fight on after they take beatings. Some people are acting like it's new to put 2 veterans in the ring together. It's not new. If they can pass their medicals, go for it. Go for it. Derek's 40, Joyce is 38. He looked terrible against Cash Ali. That was earlier this year. Derek fought on the undercard of Joshua versus Helenius last August at the O2, and he's back at the O2. Yeah, he looked old against Gerald Washington, but you know what? He won the fight. He won the fight. But as for the people who go have a big moan and cry about it, don't watch it. Don't watch it. Pretend it don't exist. Like Derek said, neither of them take a back step. Little punches are going to be thrown. Neither man minds getting hit. At the age they are now, it's not going to be long before we stop seeing them on the circuit. Why not? Match them together. They've both had some hard fights recently, and they're trying to get back in contention. Why not match them together? Joyce might be a slight favourite. He should be able to get more done from long range, although he's going to fight close up to give up his height. But Derek, coming from out of that crouch, will land to the body. He'll definitely land to the body and up top, left hooks. Derek's bobbing and weaving technique might actually be a better defense than Joyce's. It's only Derek will have to commit more to get his power punches off because of the height difference. Too early to break it down. You know what I mean? Just got the announcement, just saw the press conference at the O2. Too early. I like the fight. Emmanuel Navarrette, Mexico. 29 years of age, 38, 2-1, 31 inside the distance. He just challenged for the WBO lightweight title against Denis Barancchek from the Ukraine. 19 wins, no losses, no draws, 9 inside the distance. Possibly inspired by Alexander Usyk. He watched him outpoint Tyson Fury as he got ready for the Navarrette fight. And he won a split decision. I thought he was a relatively comfortable winner. The Spanish broadcast on ESPN, they had it a draw. No, I thought he outboxed Navarrette. Barancchek is an orthodox fighter according to BoxRec, but he fought most of this fight from the southpaw stance. And I thought he put his punches better together. He got hurt a couple of times, but he outmaneuvered Navarrette, put his punches together better. Navarrette not throwing as much punches as I'm used to seeing him throw. Maybe because this is his 4th weight class, perhaps. He's a bit more reluctant to trade with the bigger guys. Or he just hasn't took that gas tank and speed up to 135. Good win for Barancchek. The better fight, though, was on the undercard. Giovanni Santillan, who I saw stopped Alexis Rocha last year, I believe. And they fought for the interim WBO title at 147. Robert Garcia had a tough end to his career. Former super featherweight champion, IBF. And basically, even when he was fighting hard, aggressive fights or counter punches, like people who could punch hard, he'd just walk into the eye of the storm. That's what he did. And that's how he trained Brandon Rios, and that's how he's training Giovanni Santillan. You know why I'm talking about this before I even go into the fight? Is Tim Bradley said when he was training for Manny Pacquiao, I'm assuming the first fight, when Giovanni was a kid, he sparred with him. And he said, yeah, he was very clever from off the back foot. So he used to fight different. But now he walks his man down with his head down, open for uppercuts, throws wide shots at times where he himself can get countered. And Brian Norman is no defensive genius. As Tim Bradley pointed out, after he punches, he's not moving his head off the line. So that kept it competitive all the way throughout. But what Brian doesn't do, he doesn't throw them wide punches and he doesn't just walk in with his head down. Giovanni burrowed in there one too many a time and he got caught with that left uppercut in the 8th and it buckled him. Up until that point, he absorbed a whole load of clean shots without flinching. Now he's hurt and big shots are landing, uppercuts, left hooks. And rather than he move, try and clear his head, he's trying to swing back. Now, it's great television, but it's shitty tactics in a boxing ring. Brian Norman was cut over the left eye earlier in the fight, head clash, but they're containing the blood. Joe Tessitore and Tim Bradley said, they got information back to them that Robert Garcia wanted him to see out the 9th round and try and get Norman in the 10th. I'm wondering why, in the interval between 8 and 9, why they didn't tell Giovanni to get his gatherings back, be a bit more defensive, and then try and work his way back in. Why are you waiting until he gets beaten up in the 9th to tell him to survive? The keys are what Bradley said. He used to be clever off the back foot. Why is he not reverting back to that style? Especially when you get hurt. Has Robert Garcia totally erased what he was doing as a kid from his game? And was that a good idea? Probably not. Could have stopped it at the end of the 9th. I'm not going to complain about that though. But after that big uppercut dropped him, the right uppercut in the 10th, the towel should have been thrown in. Because it was one-sided, it was a lost cause. The ring was splattered with this kid's blood. Cut over both eyes, nose streaming blood, has to be broken. Nothing left in the tank. And Norman opens him up with another combination. And this left uppercut, the way it twisted Giovanni's head, it was over. And people are questioning why didn't you stop the fight? What was you playing at, Robert Garcia? What was you doing? But Brian Norman is champion, interim champion. I believe when Terence Crawford steps into the ring on August the 3rd, they will elevate Brian to full WBO welterweight champion. Excellent win for the young dude. He's from Georgia, 26-0, 20 inside the distance, 23 years of age. Did his thing and did it well. As for Giovanni, long way back. That was a horrible knockout, man. Horrible knockout. The way he went down was crazy. I'm going to clip a few of the comments. I can't believe Robert Garcia, who is knowledgeable of fighters and their health. This message is directly to him. You see a fighter, he was finished. You could have threw in the towel before that last knockout. Save him for another day and fight. Don't be so unprotective of your fighters. Somebody replied to that, I cannot believe they let that man come out for round 10 with a badly broken nose and what looked like to be an intense amount of damage to the head. Absolute negligence on the part of the corner. Somebody replies to that, yes, I agree with you. The guy wasn't even in the fight when he was hurt. His corner should have thought about letting him come out. Makes no sense. Robert should be ashamed of himself. He always criticizes other trainers for not stopping it when they should have. And it continues and it continues, it continues. Terrible corner work from Robert Garcia. It has to be said. You've got to call it. You've got to call it. It has to be called. Terrible corner work. I don't care what Giovanni said in the corner. I still want to go. I still can win. No. You don't stop it in the corner. You need to stop it after that knockdown in the 10th. And with that,
I'm gone. Ghost, peace. Sayonara.